Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We are back with another Beyond Order series. We're on Rule 8. Try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. Before we get going, here's a quote just for this episode. Something we cannot see protects us from something we do not understand. The thing we cannot see is culture in its intrapsychic or internal manifestation. The thing we do not understand is the chaos that gave rise to culture. If the structure of culture is disrupted unwittingly, chaos returns. We will do anything to defend ourselves against that return. Preface to Maps of Meaning by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. We've been on this series for some time now. Beyond Order, I've got it right here in my hands. It's falling apart at this point, taking so many notes and highlighting and transcribing these notes that stand out into Word and attempting to, to filter that into a one-page breakdown to teach, to try to boil down each of these rules into one theme. And I think the theme of Rule 8, try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. I re-listened to this 4 or 5 times on Audible, having recently lost my remarkable pen in a hoopla of activity in the last 2 weeks. It's due to the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholder meeting 2025 and the travel prior in Pittsburgh, after in Jersey and Pennsylvania, and back in Florida. Now I'm recording in our garage in Naples before getting picked up at 5 a.m. to head to Dallas. And the hoopla of attempting to endeavor into the unknown, bridging the unknown and the known, the relatively unknown, and I guess the unknowable, highlighted in this chapter. I lost my remarkable pen. If you don't know what a remarkable is, it's a piece of technology that ultimately is like a techno notepad. It syncs up to the cloud. You can connect it to smart TVs and actually take notes and watch those notes projected on a television. I have the whole company in this remarkable, in files and folders and organized, and helps me track ideas and notes that I can then translate into analyses and culture puzzles and strategic analyses for our client partners and so on. And I've been relying on this thing for years and years to stay organized and listen better. All of the Culture Matters podcasts are recorded, or the preparation is documented on the Remarkable before the guests come on. I'm reading information about their life and their history and their knowledge. I'm tracking it on the Remarkable. I'm reviewing it on the Remarkable. I'm taking notes on the Culture Matters during the Culture Matters podcast and the Remarkable. I'm taking notes on the Remarkable during sessions and with our client partners, or meetings with our partners, or meetings with our client partners. And the it's almost become a part of who I am as a person. And that pen is the wizard's wand, and to lose it in the hoopla and endeavor of attempting to build and break down and rebuild myself, build the company, build the brand, build the culture, break down and rebuild myself through the process. I think it's fitting I start this episode with the loss of the Remarkable pen, and how right now, today, I don't have my Remarkable in front of me, and I am endeavoring into the unknown without my Remarkable, and just how scary that is. But with that, listening to this chapter multiple times, endeavoring into the unknown, not following the exact process that I followed for rule 1 through 7 is scary. I don't think it would be something that I'd be doing if I wasn't and living up to one of the concepts shared in this rule, in this chapter 8. Try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible, because it's about the role of the artist. It's about the role of creator. It's about the role of creativity. And I think curiosity, if I was going to make a theme for this rule, it's curiosity, courage. It talks about love, courage. It's at the end, actually, I'll pull it up, and a few other virtues that we as individuals actually have to embody to reestablish culture, to reestablish. First, there's like just staying in the game, we have to innovate, whether if we have a business, if we have a life, if we're the leader of a civilization, just to stay in the game, we have to work against entropy, work against breakdown of order, just to stay in the game. But what about being ahead? What about actually creating more value for shareholders? What about actually creating more value for our civilization, our community? Going back to rule 4, notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. It's part of the responsibility of the leader to stay ahead, to follow that intuition, to listen to the artist, to follow the intuition of the artist. But there's an artist in each of us, especially if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur. There's something inside of you that is attempting to take flight. Now, let's say you're not an entrepreneur, you're an employee. Well, that's okay too, because there's something inside of you, there's genius inside of you that's going to take flight within an organization relative to how it's governed, relative to the leadership that you have in your life, to the relationship that you have with your superior, the mentor-mentee dichotomy, the relationship that you have with your peers, the relationship that you have with yourself and your continued education. Are you continually working to learn and get better at your craft, at your job? Is it just a job, or is it a career? Is it something that you're excited about, continuing to learn and get better? Or are you have been in a state, or are you in a state of just showing up and doing the bare minimum? Are you disengaged? Have you not noticed that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated? Are you abdicating responsibility? But I bring up the remarkable pen because that pen and the use of it represents a degree of order. It represents a degree of order. It's a part of what is known in my process of creation, in my process of harnessing curiosity, endeavoring into the unknown, because Peterson has been talking about the known and the unknown, the relatively unknown, this process of knowledge moving from known unknowns and unknown unknowns into what is known, like the process of synthesizing knowledge. The artist sees what we can't. They direct us in a the artist direct and art really directs it humbles us, but also directs us. It's almost as if it's an art, and beauty is an intermediary between the unknown and the known. It humbles us and keeps us from destroying ourselves, and it also guides us into where we need to go to reimagine our civilization, or reimagine ourselves as individuals. Because it's as if art and beauty, beauty and recognizing the transcendent helps balance the paradoxes of life. Like, how do we stay humble yet but and maintain order, and not succumb to the deviance within ourselves? Let the varying personalities vying for dominance in our individuality take over and undermine our personality, our personal reality, our how we show up with others, and our personal responsibility to life and the anxieties that come with being thrust into the world, how do we stay humble and stay in order of our as individuals while confronting the unknown and being in a position that necessitates reimagining ourselves and reimagining our societies. How do we stay the same yet change? This is a uh, unbelievably complicated, and so much of it is beyond what we can conceptualize or what we can fully understand. But art helps humble us as well as helps point us in the next inevitable direction to reorient ourselves as individuals with what needs to be done and reimagine our societies into what they can become to make life overall better for everybody. I love this. Artists teach people to see. Artists teach people to see. One of the examples used in this rule is about how the actual artist, they won't necessarily, they're not necessarily understanding if you're art, what it is that they're creating. But there's this intuition, there's this feeling, there's this impulse, there's this curiosity or compulsion that's being followed. And in areas that are a bit that are on the edge of order, maybe it's an up and coming area, the artists will go there first, then the gentrifiers, then the developers, then the name brands, and then the artists end up having to move because the cost of living goes up so much. Artists live on the edge. Entrepreneurs live on the edge of goods and services that are currently accepted by the market. The entrepreneur ventures out, they follow a vision, they have a vision of a solution of a problem, and and intuitively seek to create a market dominance for that vision of a solution of a problem. Endeavor and figure out what relationships are needed, what reasons are needed, what resources are needed to make that business work. And I would argue that as a student of entrepreneurs, as a teacher of entrepreneurs, in a sense, following this intuition that I originally had that culture mattered and in a business context and attempting to make what's implicit explicit with the CEO manual and the culture puzzle when it comes to entrepreneurs. Like in the CEO manual, the relationships that the CEO or the founder acting out the role of CEO is responsible for within an organization and is responsible for outside of an organization to bring into the growing and evolving culture. That's implicit. And we're making that explicit in the CEO manual process, increasing awareness and increasing recognition of what one is actually doing. So one can be more responsible for the future of the organization. Thing with resources, same thing with reasons. What has been implicit in the actual being of the founder, the story that's driving them, the values that they're representing in their behaviors, the um, the rituals that has made the culture what it is up to that point. Now, to make it scalable, actually taking what's implicit and making it explicit in the stories that make the organization significant to its shareholders is part of the maturation of the founder into a CEO. From that intuitive explorer, that artist, into the one capable of managing the organization while still continue to endeavor into the unknown, following that intuition and curiosity. I think the big takeaway from Rule 8, try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible, is that going back to Osiris in Rule 4, notice that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. When if we've become successful and we stop paying attention, we've got to reimagine our business or reimagine our life or reimagine our society. This goes back to what Peterson says, we have to have a goal. Once you've accomplished your last goal without a new goal, it's inevitable that order will break down in a deconstructive negative sense. It won't break down in a constructive proactive sense. It won't be reimagined. It's like we're not going to be listening if we're not paying attention to the new goal. There's a responsibility that comes with success, which is what's the next goal? Where are we going next? Our people need to follow that or they will perish, and so will we. At the same time, before their success, there is that impulse, there is that curiosity, there is that vision, there is that creative aspect that the artist or the individual that is courageously moving into the unknown from the known is going to be representing. It is a degree of courage to leave the walled garden, to the Buddha leaving the prince leaving the shelter of the kingdom, the child leaving the home, the high schooler, leaving to go to college, venturing out of the home to stay at the dormitory, the the any of you listening to this that's employee for 40 years that wants to go start your business, and you're going to leave your vision of who you could be in under a bushel, you're not going to ever take that risk. You will likely regret that. It's like moving from comfort to discomfort based on that feeling, that intuition. Following your genius is listening to that voice, that little voice that's whispering and saying, you could be more, you could do more. Why not you? At some level, everyone has that artist in them, that genius in them. At least, this is the bias of the Culture Matters podcast. The purpose of the podcast is to uncover the genius of our guests with the goal to make curiosity cool. Try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible is about being intentional. If we're going to take it literally about our home, right, as individuals, it's like literally taking that one room and taking it very seriously. It's like, what am I going to do to make this room as beautiful as possible, to as a reflection of me paying attention and taking my life seriously and taking personal responsibility for my life. On a societal level, it's what does art tell us about our civilization, about ourselves? What can it remind us? How can it humble us? How can it help us how can it help point us into a direction that's necessary? If we're in a position of authority and we're in a position where people are following us, and we have responsibility over the masses, we better be listening to our artists. We better be listening. We better be paying attention. If we're not, we're unlikely to listen, and we're unlikely to be able to burden the responsibilities that come with leadership, that come with authority. Try and make your one room in your home as beautiful as possible is about living, right, on the edge of what's known and what's unknown, and attempting to move closer and closer, and I guess recognize the beauty in what's unknowable. Like it becomes a philosophical conversation, how you're actually going to live your life. I think also that it's after Rule 7, work as hard as you possibly can, at least one thing, because there's a materialism or a rationalism, some type of reductionism that lives in working as hard as you possibly can, at least one thing. It's about becoming better at a thing, or, developing the skills necessary for survival, to combat nature, to combat the unknown. We can lose ourself. We can lose our spirit. We can lose the values. We can lose we can lose the recognition of what's meaningful. So, for example, in the book, in Rule 8, Peterson talks about when he was working really hard as a teacher and as a student to working on his theories, it was hard to play with his kids because of how focused every minute was. And it's about recognizing that. And I struggle with this. I'm sure many of you that are entrepreneurs do. Being present in those moments is a big part of the point of meaning. And I think try and make at least one room in your home as beautiful as possible is a reminder that if you are working as hard as you possibly can, at least one thing to see what happens, which is rule 7. If you are noticing that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicating, you're attempting to step into your genius. If you are abandoning ideology, if you really want to abandon ideology, you have to try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible so that you can embrace the fog, not let the fog creep in as you're focused on becoming better and more useful for others in the world. And so that you don't think you're imagining who you could be, so you can aim single-mindedly at that rule too, but you actually are doing that. Like there's a connection between not hiding things in the fog and trying to make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. That will lower the likelihood of carelessly denigrating social institutions and creative achievements. If you're paying attention to making, and this is what art does, and this is what recognizing it does, and this is what paying attention to culture does, it helps us understand who we are and how we fit in the world and what we can be grateful for, moving into rule 12, be grateful despite your sufferings, so that we can actually become that master and not lose ourselves in all that intellectualizing and rationalizing and sacrifice and maybe some of the lower order impulses that drive creativity. We don't get, subsumed by them. Rule 8, try and make one room in your home as beautiful as possible. Go listen to rule 1 through 7, and I'm excited to go through rule 9. If old memories still upset you, write them down carefully and completely. This is Beyond Order by Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. Please share this with a friend who enjoys Peterson's works. Leave us a review on the Culture Mentors podcast. I got to get in my Uber and head to Dallas.